Will the Oklahoma Sooners let what's happening spiral for the rest of the season? We'll talk about that and so much more on today's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins on the money line. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. My buddy here is Josh Hummer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. You can also hear him Monday through Friday on the KREF Sports app. Josh, a lot has been said about this team over the last few days after losing another close game, this time to Oklahoma State. And so the question is now about how do they finish? They've got 3 more games to tell the story of the 2023 season. As players met with the media after practices Monday, Tuesday night, there was just discussion of, okay, how do you keep your team focused on what the task is at hand? There was a comment from Ethan Downs, and perhaps Josh, you have the quote in particular where he discusses, the idea of locker room cancers, and there were a lot of kind of interpretations being made about that on the social media timelines. But we can discuss some of that, Josh. But and Ethan Downs' dad came to kind of maybe provide a little bit of clarification. He's got a little bit of inside knowledge of the mentality of his son. But what's the exact quote there, Josh, from Ethan Downs?
Well, I am paraphrasing a bit here, but his whole thing was, we're going to keep cancer out of the locker room, which afterwards, this was immediately after the game, by the way, with Chris Plank and the radio crew. So a lot of people were like, wait a second, like, we got to get the cancer out of the locker room. What does that mean? And I think a lot of people, it was one of those, a headline can be very powerful, but also sometimes pretty misleading, that basically Ethan Downs was saying, we're not going to let, the Kansas and the Oklahoma State results fester for this group and let what John Williams and Josh Helmer say on Locked On Sooners or anybody else on any other platform start influencing what's going on and the way we go about our business in this locker room, which I hope that's the case, right? I hope that's the case. And maybe sometimes a little outside noise isn't always the worst thing. Maybe that can be motivating, even if you don't totally agree with whatever the outside noise is. But Ethan Downs saying, we're going to stay insulated. We're going to trust what we've been doing. And I think we've heard similar things since from Drake Stoops. Basically, for anybody that wants to say, and I don't think Oklahoma fans are rushing to make these remarks, John, but look, people naturally that flat out don't care about Oklahoma, right? Like to see Oklahoma fail. What's one of the remarks or what's some of the thoughts out there? Well, how are they going to respond? The college football playoff is out. Big 12 title hopes are gone, maybe, right? Or at least severely hampered. And Drake Stoops and others basically pushing back saying, no, we've still got a lot to play for. So I hope that what Ethan Downs is selling and what Drake Stoops is selling is how this thing's going to play out. And I feel similarly, John, to some degree, how I felt going into the Oklahoma State game, where to me, that was going to tell the fortunes for the rest of the season for Oklahoma. And it does mean to me now that I'm much less confident about these final 3 games than, I obviously would have been going in had they taken care of business versus Kansas or Oklahoma State. And yet this West Virginia game, again, similarly, John, I feel like if you get through this hurdle, if what Ethan Downs says and what Drake Stoops says is true, and you win this football game, I do think that positions this team to then go close the season strong. And is it going to be the perfect season? Is it going to be what everybody wanted? No, absolutely not. But it will be, I think, something that when we all reconvene, if a couple of things happen and we can discuss what maybe that looks like for Oklahoma, this is going to be the week. And I'll say it again. This is where we're going to find out what kind of the rest of the season holds for Oklahoma.
I think this is the time where you discover the mettle of this team. Are they tough? Are they resilient? Can they bounce back? Can they correct mistakes that we've seen kind of pop up over the last couple of weeks? In particular, the penalties, the turnovers, the missed tackles, some of those things that we didn't see from this team prior to the bye. Can they adjust? Can they correct? Can they, stay on course? I think it is easy to allow the loss to derail a season, especially an emotional, hard fought loss like you had against Oklahoma State. It'd be easy to let that just kind of take your season and run it into the ground and not win another game to close the year. But it just feels like this team is kind of more on a mission for validation, I think, and it's not going to be validated necessarily with a banner like we all hoped, or with the college football playoff berth like we all hoped, but with just continuing to make improvement. And a lot of it comes back to Brent Venables as well. Like, can he keep the ship steered on course after, running into some choppy waters over the last couple of weeks? We're going to find out. Can he keep his team focused on the right thing, on winning today, on being 1-0 this week, and not letting what's going on outside, not letting all the discussion about Jeff Lebby or about Dylan Gabriel or about, what needs to be better, again, fester inside the locker room. And some of it probably also comes back to, hey, we can't believe the hype about us anymore. We got to get rid of that. And that can be a cancer. If you start buying into what everybody is selling and buying into what all the positive things that people are saying about you, maybe you take your foot off the gas a little bit and you're not as focused. You're not as intentional with what you're doing day to day, snap to snap, quarter to quarter, game to game. And so that potentially that's part of this whole quote unquote cancer. I don't think it has. And again, Ethan Downs' dad added a little bit of clarification, maybe, that it doesn't have to do with any particular player or coach or any situation like that. It's more just the mentality of this team and how it has to weed out all the distractions, weed out all of the negative thoughts heading towards the program. And they just have to focus on ball. They just got to play football. And if they're able to do that, I'll feel good about the future of this team. If they continue to struggle, continue to have turnover issues and, pre-snap penalty issues, I'll continue to have questions. But today or this week against West Virginia at 6 p.m. in Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, it's a great opportunity for them to answer a lot of those questions.
We've got the fabled, well, it's not a players only meeting, but we've got the fabled behind closed doors meeting for Oklahoma, which typically means things aren't going great for a football team, a sports team. So we've got that. And I want to dive into it next, John, how we feel about it. What's it going to do for this team? And then Andrew Raym had some, I would qualify them as interesting remarks. We'll discuss that coming up next. We've been singing the praises of Prize Picks for daily fantasy sports. It's the quickest, it's the most fun way to play daily fantasy sports. You can submit your entry in 60 seconds or less. Just go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege, where you can use our code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. They've got some interesting things that they're developing over at Prize Picks. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like, I don't know, rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz? Well, you can do that at Prize Picks. How can you do that? You go to Community Plays under the Promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. I've been saying as well, it's kind of fun. They've got with the basketball season here, they've got what they call their combo projections across football and basketball, for instance, Travis Kelce plus LeBron James, 10.5 combo, 3-pointers made plus receptions, more or less. So just take your pick. They got a bunch of stuff going on. Fun way to play daily fantasy sports. prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use our code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy.
So let's talk about that leadership meeting. It wasn't a players only meeting because Brent Venables met with senior leadership this week to discuss keeping this team on the right track, keeping those, the nose pointed toward clean, safe waters. So what are some of your thoughts about this? Yes, we hear about this all the time in sports, the players only meetings, NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, doesn't matter. It happens across the board. A lot of times it's happening when there's not a lot of great situations occurring on the field, off the field, to try and keep everybody refocused.
Well, I think it's positive. Obviously, this team needs some form or fashion of recentering, though I saw our man Keegan Renault and some others populating the social media timeline today with some analytical numbers. I think we talked about this a little bit in our last episode, but that are encouraging, that actually, again, show that Oklahoma is clearly better in a bunch of key categories, which is not shocking, but is clearly better in a number of key categories as compared to a season ago. So they're actually, believe it or not, if you go looking for them outside of just the win-loss column, which is always going to be the ultimate definition on whether or not this team has made the type of progress that fans want. And I get it. I hear that, but there are some positive signs if you go looking for them. And yet, for this group of seniors, John, this is a frustrating path to come across, because guess what? This is a group that, regardless of what some folks nationally may have said before the season started, right? You beat Texas and all of a sudden the narrative changed a little bit, and the recalibration nationally and locally was, okay, maybe this is a college football playoff team. But before the season started, there wasn't necessarily a lot of positive things said about Oklahoma. And yet privately, I'm sure the Drake Stoops of the world, the Dylan Gabriels and others of the world felt like, John, they had the goods to turn this thing into a season where they did what Oklahoma's accustomed to doing, which is winning the Big 12 championship. And again, that's not totally done yet. Going to a college football playoff, which that dream, yes, is done. So with that being the group that you have leading this team, just a meeting of the minds, just a sit down of, hey, everybody take a deep breath. It's not as good as maybe we thought it was at one point in time. It's not as bad as it maybe has felt like losing these last two football games. You guys are my senior leaders. I need you to still keep tug of war on this same rope with me. We're eventually going to win this tug of war this season, but you can't quit on me now. And here's the way that you need to lead, because, hey, there's a number of young guys on this football team right now, John, that are getting a bunch of big time snaps. And at some point, I think back to the Braden Willis remarks from last season, right? Where what did he say when it wasn't going great for Oklahoma was, Team 128 is going through this, so Team 129 and beyond can prosper and thrive. And so I would imagine maybe some of this conversation a little bit along those lines.
Yeah, it's a team that has improved significantly. And so there's a lot to take away from this season so far that's been really, really positive. And I think the emergence of several leaders in particular is part of that. But I think one of the things that's been kind of the coolest thing is seeing Drake Stoops emerge both as a player and as a leader on this team. I mean, everybody's always had an affinity for Drake Stoops, the story, the work ethic, the, rags to riches, going from walk on to scholarship player, obviously Bob Stoops' son, that's part of it. But he's turned into a really, really good player. And I think his comments after practice, I think it was Monday night, struck a chord with a lot of people, that he said he took a lot of pride in this program and has a lot of pride in finishing strong and putting out his best effort every single day. And that's something that can lead people to follow, this idea that I'm going to keep grinding. Like nothing has changed for me. It's the same. I'm going to do the same thing today that I did last week, because that's what you got to do. You can't change everything up just because you had a loss here or there. There are execution issues that are at play. There's, offensive, play calling identity that's an issue a little bit too. but this team is prepared well. This team has done what they've had to do to be in a position where they're just 2 1-score games away from being undefeated. And they've done what they've had to do to improve as a team. Yeah, they've gotten a few transfers in. They had a good, 2023 signing class, but a lot of it is the guys that were here last year making significant improvements in their game and their understanding of the offense, their understanding of the defense to help this team take the next step. And so what Braden had to say about, you went through some rough times last year. It was not fun. If you were here with us on the show and subscribed to the show last year with us, it was not a good time talking about the 6-7 Oklahoma Sooners. This has been a lot more fun, and it is a credit to them that they've been able to make that big time leap. I mean, both on offense and defense. I mean, the offense, the numbers might be kind of similar, but they're scoring more points per game. They're better on third down. They're better in the red zone. Everything says this has been a better offense. Defensively, you can see it. The numbers don't lie. The numbers are better than what they were a year ago. Last year, they allowed 5 40-point games, 7 games of 30 or more. This year, just 2 games of 30 or more, no games of 40 or more. So the difference is significant. And it's Drake Stoops, it's Isaiah Coe, it's Jordan Kelly, Jonah Laula, all those, those veteran players, Danny Stutsman, Key Lawrence, Reggie Pearce, like all these guys that didn't give up on the idea that this is a team that could be great. And yeah, it didn't turn out that way, but they still have a lot to play for this year. And I think that's why we're going to see a bounce back performance from this team, a reinvigorated Oklahoma Sooners this week against West Virginia.
Obviously, like any week, from the Helmer book of cliches, but given that you've lost back-to-back games on the road and it's a primetime kick and it's the final, maybe. Do we know the TCU kickoff time yet?
I don't think so. The BYU time got put in the 6-day window. So I don't know. Oh, wait, with TCU, because that Black Friday thing. Let me go see if I can find it real quick.
Well, at any rate, if it's not the final primetime Big 12 game for Oklahoma in Norman, it's the second to last one, right? And there's a good chance it is the final primetime game. So that's 11 a.m. Okay, I thought we knew that, but I wanted to double check before I started spouting off something as fact when I didn't definitively know that. So this is the final primetime Big 12 game for Oklahoma. So with that and a fan base frothing at the mouth to see things go better, get off to a good start in this game would go a long ways. And I do think you're going to see, if it goes well early, I think you're going to see an encouraging crowd, right? If it goes poorly, then you might kind of see an anxious Oklahoma crowd. So that's going to be important. Andrew Raym had some, again, what I would qualify as rather interesting remarks, John. So obviously Oklahoma in this Bedlam loss, a couple of snaps that, the one is right at Dylan Gabriel's feet late, and it causes you to fumble the football away and gives the football right back to Oklahoma State. Fortunately, you hold them to just the field goal, so it wasn't a total death sentence, but it takes one possession away from you, and it gives 3 points directly to Oklahoma State. Obviously, before that, early on in this contest, I believe on Oklahoma's second drive, Oklahoma fumbles it away as the snap sent back to Javonte Barnes. He tries to hand it off to Dylan Gabriel. They lose the football on a drive where they were moving. It felt like that was a drive that was going to end in points. And yet afterwards, the offensive coordinator, the head coach, basically everybody said that the snap was intended to go to Dylan Gabriel. So it was a snap malfunction, right? Andrew Raym not saying the same thing. Quote, I'll take the blame on one of them. On one of them, I don't know. Maybe let the environment get to me, heard something I shouldn't have and went. Shoot, I don't know. I can't take the blame for all of them, end quote. So I'll just defer the floor to you. And I've got some thoughts on this as well, but what do you make of this?
I don't like it. This is an opportunity for him to just say, I have to be better. It's PR 101. And when you're part of a team sport and you've made some mistakes, you don't necessarily, you may not feel like everything is at your feet. You may not feel responsible for all of the snap issues. I get that. But as the center, you're kind of the leader on the offensive line. And this is a moment for you to kind of take accountability for a mistake that you made. And whether you made the mistake on all of them or you made the mistake on one of them, your response is, I've got to be better. I've simply got to be better. I cannot, have snap malfunctions. The key to this offense and running tempo is making sure we get the simplest part of this thing done right. And that's the snap to the quarterback. Yes, Andrew Raym. I can't know exactly what the play call was, on the Javonte Barnes, Dylan Gabriel thing. Everybody's saying it was supposed to go to Dylan Gabriel. Andrew Raym snapped it. Who knows where? It's questionable. It's questionable, to say the least. I don't think that anybody's trying to necessarily throw Andrew Raym under the bus, except just to speak honestly about, hey, this is what was supposed to happen. It didn't happen. And Andrew Raym, as a leader on this team, somebody who plays the center position, again, a leadership position on the offensive line, you kind of have to eat it. Unfortunately, it's the same way with the quarterback. If the quarterback, throws an interception and maybe it wasn't the right route, or it, tips off, a player's hand, or throws a bad incompletion or whatever, the quarterback has to take ownership of his mistakes too. It's just the way of the world. The head coach, he's saying that we as a coaching staff have to be better. The offensive coordinator may be saying, okay, we need to execute better. And then I also have to be putting us in better situations. Everybody just has to take accountability. You have to take ownership for what you did. Now, he's been a solid player for the Sooners for years now. I expect him to snap the ball cleanly. He's started enough football games for the Sooners. Whether it's 1 snap, 3 snaps, 10 snaps, whether they're all your fault or just one of them's your fault, I still expect you to snap the ball better. You got to be cleaner on your snaps. It's as simple as that.
I agree with a lot of what you said, and really all of it. The snaps, that's just something that just has to be better. And probably PR 101, it would have been the right thing to just, even if you're right, it probably would have been the correct thing to just water under the bridge and not go to bat for yourself. Even though they say, right, nobody's going to go to bat for Andrew Raym other than Andrew Raym, or nobody's going to go to bat for John instead of John, and Josh for Josh, right, et cetera, et cetera.
I'll go to bat for
this. Thank you. And likewise for you, my friend. Here was my reaction to it. And this is not to just make a total mountain out of a molehill. This is in the name of transparency here. On some level for Oklahoma, and keep in mind, before I go down this little road here, all of this gets fixed by winning, and it's quickly forgotten if you beat West Virginia and you win these next couple of games. But I would say this to me, given that we heard the opposite from the coaching staff, and now we're hearing this from Andrew Raym, on some level, if it's the players don't know what play is getting called, or a couple of players think one play is getting called and the others think another's getting called, or the offensive coordinator has it right and the right play was called and you snapped at the wrong place. On some level, very clearly, John, there is miscommunication between some key forces at play in Oklahoma's offense and disagreement among some key pieces among Oklahoma's offense. So in the name of transparency, look, it's fixed by winning, but I find that a little bit troubling.
Yeah, I don't like it. At this point in the season, you should have zero communication issues. And obviously in T-Boone Pickens Stadium, it's going to be loud, but still, you're a veteran quarterback, a veteran center. You got to have those things ironed out. That's all I really have to say about that. We got some injury updates from the coach, the head coach, Brent Venables. We'll discuss that here after the break. There's no better time to get in on the NFL action than right now with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 winning money line bet. That's $150 in free bonus bet if your team wins. So what's a money line bet? Well, Oklahoma right now is plus 390 on the money line. The West Virginia Mountaineers minus 530. That means, for the money you put in, if you bet on Oklahoma in the money line, you get big time dollars in the bonus bet category. The Dallas Cowboys, my favorite team, they're huge favorites. They're like a college football favorite over the New York Giants heading into this weekend, minus 16.5 points. You never see a spread that big in the NFL. So if you're feeling good, you're feeling lucky, go over to FanDuel right now. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. All right, Josh, we got some injury updates to discuss, most notably with Danny Stutsman, Tawee Walker, Gentry Williams. There's some optimism they'll be available, but it sounds like they're all kind of day to day. They're going to see how they're going as the week goes along, but it sounds like it's a good chance we're going to get Danny Stutsman back. Tawee Walker played in limited fashion on Saturday, and he looked good. Although he did look like he was a bit slowed because of his ankle injury. And then Gentry Williams, man, the dude cannot catch a health break. He's just been in and out of the lineup all season long. How important is it to get all three, any of the three back? And who maybe is the most important to get back for this week?
I would say Danny Stutsman is the most important of those three to get back this week, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of quarterback run, and having somebody that can identify and be where he needs to be and get other folks where they need to be. If you can, similar to, well, I guess not similar, but similar in the sense that this is the chief thing I think you need to get accomplished to win the game. Like it was last week, we thought, right? Slowing down a running back in the run game. Well, this week, if you slow down Garrett Green, the quarterback in the run game, I really like your chances to win this game. So for that reason, I would say Danny Stutsman, to me, is the most important of the three.
I feel like he's going to be a man on a mission this year. I just still have a vivid memory of a key, it might have been a third or fourth down, where, he's got Garrett Green dead to rights in the hole, which would have been like a no yard gain. I think he would have stopped him at the line of scrimmage, and Garrett Green kind of bounces off the shoulder tackle and runs for a first down late in that game to kind of ice it or allow West Virginia to win that one. So I feel like he's going to come in, if he's ready to go and he's healthy, I think he's going to be a man on a mission, and he's going to have one of these Danny Stutsman games that we've seen from him early this year, where it's like 14, 15 tackles, and he's just going to be all over the place. I think Tawee Walker, if you can get him at least where he was last week, if not a little bit healthier, I think it does wonders for you. Gavin Sawchuk had a really good game. I just need to see more from Gavin Sawchuk to feel confident in what he's going to be able to do for the running game. Tawee Walker, he's been consistent, probably your most consistent back all season long. And yeah, man, we got to get Gentry Williams. We've got to get him healthy. If anybody's got some super soldier serum out there that they can pass to our man, please do. Obviously not performance enhancing drugs, but give him a little Captain America stuff. Just because, man, the guy has played so well, but he's just not been able to get over the little things each week. It seems like, if he has a healthy game, the next game he's limited because of something. And he's been one of Oklahoma's better defenders this year. If you don't have him available, then you're looking at Kenai Walker, Makari Vickers again, probably on the outside. And I would like to see more Makari Vickers. I liked what I saw from a physicality standpoint and just his ability, his willingness to kind of mix it up a little. I feel confident in the linebacker group, if Stutzman's not 100%, that Kip Lewis, Jaron Canick, Kobe McKenzie can still play well. I don't necessarily worry about West Virginia as much as a passing team, so I think that bodes well for the Sooners on defense and for their young linebacker core. But they're going to try and take advantage of a young linebacker core with a lot of misdirection, a lot of read option, a lot of RPO, where they're going to try to get these guys guessing and maybe take advantage of some of their inexperience. So getting Danny Stutsman back would help tremendously. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef, myself at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners. And until next time, where we'll begin to break down West Virginia, we'll start looking into the keys to the game, key matchups, where each team sits statistically. We'll do that here on Locked On Sooners all week long. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. He's Josh Helmer. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you next time. Boomer Sooner.